maybe during the drum and bass days, like in 91, 92. I hadn't seen him since then, so I reconnected with Newton and had conversations, and then he's like telling me more about history. And I was like, okay, this is quite a serious story that needs to be made. I didn't really have the expertise at the time, but I just went for it anyway and just documented. And at that time, we had no idea that the club was going to close. This was like 97, 96, 97. And as time went on, continuing to film and and be around the club, Newton then was presented with the compulsory purchase order, and then it was like all of a sudden the clock's ticking, and then I realised, wow, this is quite a moment here, and so I just continued to hover and to document, and that's pretty much the long and short of it, really. I just documented it from then on, and it went on and on and on because we had no idea what was going to happen to the site, to the building. And the building is also just as important as the Four Aces Club and everything because of what happened previous to it. So we were very concerned about that, the outcome of the building and, will it be kept? And then we saw these posters, stop the Dalston Theatre from being knocked down. And it was an organisation called Open. And it was Bill Parry Davis who was running that organisation. He was a solicitor that literally has his office opposite the venue. So we connected, me, Newton, and Bill, and then we started to sort of campaign together to stop this council plan to knock it down, and that went on for a number of years. And unfortunately, long story short, we lost the battle. I think it was all connected to the Olympics and things like that. So somewhere in 2007, I was away in Ghana, and I knew that it was really important. If it was going to get knocked down, I needed to be there. I needed to document that process as well. So somebody called me and they were like, they started knocking down the building, so I flew straight back. And that was where the shots that you saw at the beginning and at the end. So that was when I realised, okay, there's actually a film now, the completion, because I know the outcome of the site, and there's an unfortunate one. So then I think it was 2007, I decided to shoot the interviews and find, all the people I could at the time. And yeah, I think it was 2007. I had three-quarters of the film. I hadn't shot the Labyrinth era part of it, and did a screening at the V&A as a part of this Soul exhibition thing. And then the following year, when I completed it, then we did a big screening at Cafe Otto, and yeah, this film's like 17 years old. Never been released.
Very old.
But anyway, so there's a long and short of it. And Beefy, you were involved in the club from how did you get involved?
So I remember as being a young man, it was, my brothers and my sisters used to talk about this legendary space in Dalston that you had to go to, but I was way too young, as you can see. So what happened was I moved from North Tottenham to South Tottenham, and I moved next door to your brother, Stanley, and me and Stanley became very great friends. And he said, one day he said, do you know that, my dad cooks downstairs in the bottom of Four Races. This is me. Is it? Okay. So let's go. So I think we trundled up there on a Thursday night, and Des was on the door. And just because Stanley was there with me, I was able for the first time to access the Holy Land. So we went in, and it was quite funny because as I went in, a lot of my elders, I call them, the people at the time who were the faces in Tottenham and Hackney and East London and North London and South London, all congregated in one space. So I walked in there, it was like the Avengers had assembled, and I had to go to all of them, hi, how you doing, what's going on? And, as a little man, you get your little touches and your respect and that. And then Stanley took us downstairs to meet your dad. And as I said, that was the first time I tasted that fried chicken. I didn't pay for the first plate, but I had to pay for the subsequent plates after that, which is about 4 in one night, but we won't go into that. I was then lucky enough that Stanley took me upstairs, and we got to meet the great Newton Dunbar, R.I.P., rest in peace, Newton. Yeah, and from there it just started. He took a shine to me. I was quite lucky. So we ended up going back quite a few nights and ended up in the Valley of the Lost, I named it, because you'd go up there at 3 o'clock, and then you say, oh, so it must be about 6 now. Then you work out it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So yeah, you just go up there, you lose track of time. The conversations up there were fantastic. It was built on fable, truth, lies. But one thing about Newton was, I always said this, Newton was the original internet, because anything you needed to know and wanted to learn about, you just go up there and you'd find out. I was lucky enough for Newton, as I said, to take me under his wing and kind of showed me the ropes of running nightclubs and what it took and the energy and the position. So yeah, me and Newton became very good friends. And we lived like, I said, bigger brother, little brother, yeah, it was great.
Okay, thank you, Fifi. And Mr. Milton, when was your first journey to the Aces? How did you find out about it and your involvement?
Yes, my brother Winston and family. Before I answer your question, I just wanted to pay respect to those many persons on the film have now passed on to the ancestors. Yeah, I cannot name everyone, but I will do a few, and it goes as follows. Drummy Zed from Aswad, Sugar Minot, of course the late Newton Dunbar, which is in recent times, Charlie Collins, Bob Marley, the lead singer from Matumbi, I cannot recall his name, I think his name was Bagger, something, but don't quote me on that here, but the lead singer of Matumbi, which was quite a significant band in the British music industry, and not forgetting Sister Louisa Marks, iconic. Yeah. So now moving on to your question, my brother. My first engagement with the Four Aces Club must have been during the 70s when I was still at school. And it was indeed, for me and many others of my vintage, it was our extended school. It was further and higher education. It was indeed our university. Because as I documented on the film, I did not realize my African roots. Was never told about this in school, and I attended school locally. My school was Upton House, and we produced giants. I think Eddie Grant might have been there, and people from the Bay City Rollers, and people, I can't remember, quite some giants anyway. And there was no mention of our black history at school. I learned it from the Four Aces Club. And as I said in the video, I actually learned about cuisine. Jamaican born, Jamaican raised, and I had no idea that we had this thing in Jamaica called roast fish and cornbread. And I think it was a tune by Lee Perry. And when it dropped in that venue, when I say dropped, in reggae music, the emphasis is always in the second and the fourth beat. 1, 2, 3, 4. When it, as the DJs were saying, the acoustics in that building were unique. And in the reggae industry, when we said a rhythm drop, that means that you can feel the wave from the bass and the drums, that it comes 1, 2, 3, 4. So I learned, let's say, a lot within the walls of those clubs. I might have entered at an illegal age, but I certainly wasn't shut down. But I entered there legally. And what is also significant about the Four Aces Club, it offered myself and my band employment. First record that my band ever released was actually done at the Four Aces Club initially, and then Sir Collins took us to a studio in London Bridge, and it came out with a label, I think called Nice One. So if you Google Unity Star Band, producer Sir Collins, he's got another alias, I think Big Dread, you will find that. And so it's a place of learning, yeah, the Four Aces was it. Employment, education, sense of belonging, and most importantly, our African roots, to realize, that we are African people plucked out of Africa and brought all over the Caribbean for the likes of Cadbury's and Roundtree Macintosh, the confectionery industry. That's what slavery was about. Yeah, so I learned a lot, and of course, I was involved in the struggle to keep it open with Bill Parry Davis and Open and Brother Winston. So I'm a person who do a lot of blah, 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 so I better just put a full stop here at the one.
Thank you, Milton. So yeah, I'm gonna offer it out to you guys. If you've got any questions you want to ask us, we could just keep yapping. We want to hear from you as well. If you've got anything particular that you'd like to ask. Question over this side?
Yeah.
Someone's pointing? Yeah.
I do have a question actually. It's about footage. You said that it's spanned over 30 years making the film, and I just wanted to find out if there was any footage that got lost in the process, or any kind of technical things. And also, is there anyone who wanted to get in the film that you weren't able to film?
Okay. So footage, lost footage. It's more like found footage. It was hard to find footage, but a lot, not a lot, but a fair amount has unravelled over the years. But I would say not so much footage, but more stills, more photos have sort of appeared. There's a man called Sir Collins who was also a big part of the club, and him and you had a massive falling out right at the end when the council came in, and he had a massive archive, and because we were working on a film together. And it was him who tragically lost his son Steve Collins in the New Cross fire. So there was a little moment in there, like the trees. So Sir Collins, he had all this archive. I really wanted to, use it for the film. He never showed me any of it. And then him and Newton fell apart, and then he didn't want anything to do with me in the project. And he passed, sadly, some years ago. And now his archive, his son, his children are dealing with the archive. And now I'm working with them. So lots of new archive has been discovered through the opening of his archives, not publicly open yet. So there's a lot that's going to go in again. I'm going to do another edit because there's all this other stuff that, like when it was the Rambling Rose Club, which was before the Four Aces Club, that was Sir Collins who ran that club. So there's loads of images and flyers from that time of Alton Ellis and all sorts, and himself on stage. I struggled footage-wise. I had to use quite a lot of footage shot around that time, around this area, around Stoke Newton and Dalston, because I couldn't get that much from sort of 60s and 70s in the club. But a lot of the photos, they were all taken there at the club. And it's more towards the 80s that there's much more footage, actual footage of the club that you see. But nothing lost as far as I'm aware of, but who knows. It was never documented by TV, except for Channel 4, somewhere in the 80s, BPM. They did a feature there, and there's some bits I used from BPM in the Labyrinth section. And that's about it. And then, sorry, the other question was people I didn't...
Wanted to interview for the film that you couldn't get hold of, or...
Oh, there was a lot of people I wanted to interview to get in there. I just couldn't get through their managers. I just wasn't known enough or whatever to get through. So people like Vivienne Westwood have tried to get through to her, because I heard that she made a t-shirt called, what was it, I Love Hackney, and it said I love Dalston, I love Ridley Road, I love Four Aces. So I was trying to get an interview with her, see if you can get that shirt out of her archives. Couldn't get through. And then it was people like Benny King that I wanted to get hold of, and all this, I was thinking big. I really wanted to get to some of those big names. Who else? I'm just trying to think. There's a few. I mean, you know, people like Desmond, who was on the door. I couldn't get him. You know, there's so many sort of local people I wanted to get, and then at the same time, a lot of big known names.
We also got to say that at that time, a lot of the man them didn't want to be videoed because they don't know where this footage is going, or you know, to wrong places, or then you're attached to the club. Oh, you was there on that night, so yeah. So a lot of the man them didn't want to get into film at that time.
Yeah, it was difficult times. But yeah, so quite a few people I wanted to get, I couldn't get. A few people I got later, like Junior Discom and Dennis Al Capone. And I think there's still more people to get in there, because the film's not finished really, because it hasn't been released, so I still have the opportunity to add to it. It's the third cut.
It's 6 hours already.
Yeah, it's the third cut here now, and as an independent, it gives me that right to sort of chop and change and update and upgrade. So there's been a lot of material that is unravelled and that I want to put in to add to it. And even just, you know, even before Newton passed, I was talking to Newton about his early life and, you know, coming from Jamaica and why he came to England and why he started the club. And there was the backstory, and so I'm thinking now to sort of add a little bit of that as well. His time in Jamaica and how he was deprived of going to nightclubs as a young youth by his parents, who really didn't want him going to clubs. So the first thing he did when he got to London was find a club, and then couldn't get into a club, and then decided to start one with his friends. So yeah, so there's more to be added, chopped and changed, but it won't go too far away from what it is. And you know, the club, I mean, you know, how important was the club? You know, it's socially, I mean, that was why I had to show a lot of the social history. I mean, you know, how important was the club? As a young man, as a young black man, you know, being in London at that time and not really having, you know, entry to West End clubs and things.
And the thing about Four Races is that, as Sir was saying, is that it gave us an understanding of our culture, number one. It gave us a place where we could listen to music that gave us a sense of belonging. It gave us an anchor at that time, because there was nowhere else really to go that you knew that 5 days a week or 4 days a week you were guaranteed to going through a whole genre of reggae music and culture and, you know, dancehall, and it was a whole grounding for us. It was like our harbour, our safe space in them times. So the Four Races made a great impact on a lot of people in Hackney, a lot of people worldwide. It was just, yeah, it was Mecca, musical Mecca, I would say.
And to build on that, some in the film, certain persons reflected on the rancid, racist, white supremacy, you know, infrastructure of England, Europe. There were three significant newspapers at the time for music. First is the Melody Maker. That was a weekly paper, Melody Maker, followed by the Enemy, which stands for the New Musical Express. And there was another, which I cannot recall. If you were playing modern, popular Jamaican music, i.e. reggae music, or any music, they weren't too bad on soul, but any music that reflects your culture, and predominantly music that spread a message about social commentary, righteousness, as was Bob Marley, Burning Spear, Asbad, blah, 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 you would not get coverage, period. They would not write about you in these papers. And I remember challenging one of the publication. It is called the New Musical Express. The editor was Paolo Hewitt. Paolo Hewitt was very good friends with Paul Weller from the Jam, then Style Council. And I get him to do a front page cover, and the publication was called Why British Black Music Doesn't Stand a Chance. And the reason why that was significant, as people say in the movie, nobody is going to give you a write-up in Enemy, Melody Maker, etc. Forget about BBC Radio. You ain't getting on that. Forget about there's only, I think there was BBC One, BBC Two, and ITV. You ain't getting on that either, apart from the few people that get through Millie Small with My Boy Lollipop, and maybe a few others. And so the Four Aces Club was significant. The sound system operator were telling you, unless there were sound systems, unless there was a Four Aces Club, you ain't getting no promotion. And remember, there was no internet at the time. So the only way they're going to hear your tune, Four Aces. That's the significance of that. So even the message, the wickedness that was going on in the African continent, the madness that was taking place in Jamaica by the CIA. The only way you're going to get those news, two things. Somebody brings it over in a suitcase in the Jamaican Gleaner, or the musicians would spread the word. Yeah. Importance of the Four Aces Club.
Big importance. Time for just maybe the last two questions, because I think we've got a round up. Yeah.
Hi. It's a really great historical document, right? And I really thank you for putting it together.
Can you stand up? Can you stand up, please?
Oh, I've got a bad knee, I'll do it.
Yeah, project, yeah.
I'll lean against the wall. It's a really good political, historical document, and I'm really pleased that you brought in the political side to the whole era as well, because that really makes sense. I've lived in Hackney for many years. I don't want that. I can project. I've lived in Hackney for many years, right? And I remember the Four Aces very well. I don't remember coming out of it particularly. I suppose it's a kind of political thing, because the way society has changed, the way we used to do things. I grew up in a very, very punk world, and we used to do our own little clubs and our own little gigs and all that kind of stuff. And you did the thing that you did as well. So we all had our own little things. So I'm wondering, could we have a Four Aces now?
Good question. I mean,
I would say,
because you're big in club promotion.
I would say, yeah. I think an energy and a vibe can be recreated or updated and used in any place that we could congregate together without too much stress and strains. I believe that music brings everybody together, and if it's used in the right way, we could make a real change within our communities and within the space that we live. I feel that we need that direction, and I think we need somewhere that we can have as a bricks and mortar space that people can come to at any time, because we can change people. Music can change people. You could come into the club upset, want to go out and do some stupidness. By the time you leave, you're loved up, and that's what you want. You want to see your next man come along and shake his hand, and they said, yeah, I think that we can do it, but I think we need to have the chance to do that. I think, I'm not going to say the government, but I think the way people are thinking is that if it does happen, and especially, I want to be straight, if it's the black community, it's going to not be what it should be. But we go down the road 500, 600 meters, we have a prominent dance space, which is what it is, but we need a space where we can be culturally significant. And that's what I think, and I think it can work.
I fully endorse that, The whole idea that the Windrush generation has made a significant contribution to the British way of life, and it is of epic importance in the London Borough of Hackney with two clubs, not only the Four Aces, but then there was the All Nation. And there is no evidence of those clubs now. And just think of the significant contribution that we've made. Love her or hate her, we have produced Diane Abbott, for example. Yeah, that is significant. We have produced Leroy Logan, that is significant. And the music, one lesson that I learned from Paul Weller when I was touring with him, music is meant to break down barriers, not to create them. So a next 4 aces in the borough, yes, I fully endorse that. Fantastic idea.
Just need a permanent venue. I think that's mainly the problem, is having lots of dancers nowadays are just kind of, you know, temporary, you know what I mean? They go from one venue to another venue, because nothing's sort of based in one space, and that's what ACES was, and that's what we need. And I think the rates and all sorts of things make it quite expensive and difficult. But the other thing is, I know that there's a mark against reggae, because I did some work with Turtle Bay, and when Turtle Bay got involved, they wanted to do something, and they wanted to honour 4 aces at Dalston Square. They opened this up there. They had a lot of trouble, and with like just being able to play music in their bar, if it was reggae music and stuff, and you know, it was quite obvious, you know, that if you mention reggae in owning a venue or doing anything musically, it's sort of they don't grant you the license you should. And so there's that going on. So it's almost like you want to do something that's reggae, but you can't call it that because the political situation today, now. So there's some barriers. So you've got a question.
Thank you for producing this piece of history for us. I think that in order for it not to be lost, because as we're getting senior, we need the history to be retold. So one of the suggestions I might have is to project it from an educational standpoint, where it now has a platform that can be taught, so it won't be lost. Even if you create a new 4 aces, and then the general public seeing that, well, we don't want this sort of music or genre to go ahead, the dismantling could take place again from a different form. But we do have social media, so my point is to try and get the history into the educational system and let it be taught as a natural progression, not just every October, Black History Month. Thank you.
Thank you. It's happening. It's happening. Michael Riley's been on it for the last few years with City and Westminster University.
Starting, literally, the screen's
Okay.
going to change. But I'm really sorry. You're more than welcome to take the discussion into the foyer. We would love you to stay and keep this going, but the film is honestly going to start in 30 seconds. So unless you want to
We've got
stop.
to go.